Doctors and nurses of Reddit who have delivered babies to mothers who clearly cheated on their husbands. What was that like? I don't think I've ever wanted to see an Ask Reddit question answered so badly in my life. When my baby was born, people asked me if her father was Polynesian. Nope. He's a skinny white man. There was no doubt he was the father. She was born with thick black hair. She was a big baby, 4 kg, and had jaundice which made her look very tan. The hair fell out, the jaundice went away, she thinned out, and I now have a strawberry blonde haired 2-year-old that looks exactly like her papa. But man, if I hadn't known he was the only man I'd slept with, I would have some serious doubts. Thanks for this. Now I have the mental image of a baby popping out, the mother looking at the baby and audibly going, wait a minute, I don't remember cheating. Had a patient who came into her for UT with very boyfriend of 4 months. His words, she was 19, acting extremely dramatic for just having UT. We tell her we need urine. She urges us to cath her, which is really unusual, but she says she can't pee, so me and other nurse assume the position to put in a Foley with her lying on the gurney. At this point nurse screams, call L&D. She's crowning. L&D nurse gets in just in time to grab the child as it shoots out into her hands and is a living, breathing baby. The girl swears she had no idea she was pregnant. They wheel her off to postpartum and the guy is just kind of left standing there, dumbstruck. We only been dating 4 months. I had no idea she was pregnant. She never mentioned it at all, as he just buried his head in his knees while he was sitting on the floor against the hallway wall. I felt so bad for the guy. Not exactly the situation you're asking for, but Reddit loves a good crazy mill story. My dad is blonde and my mom is brunette. I came out of the womb with fiery red hair. My dad's mom made a huge fuss about my mom cheating on my dad and had to be escorted out of the hospital. My grandmother's own mother had flaming red hair, which she apparently forgot until my great-grandmother held me for the first time and said, I always wanted a baby with my red hair. Not a doctor or nurse, but in undergrad I had a buddy, Caucasian, who'd been dating the same girl, also Caucasian, for a while. She gets knocked up, he proposes. Fast forward a few months and both families are eagerly waiting at the hospital to meet the baby. The baby comes out black. Everyone is in shock. Girl is frantically trying to convince everyone that there's been a misunderstanding. My buddy called off the engagement immediately, returned the ring, and never looked back. Mother to be warned, this could go one of 2 ways prior to delivery. Wasn't sure what she meant. She was white, as was her husband. Delivered baby was black. Then it all made sense. So one of my very white friend's girlfriends was pregnant, and when the baby was born it was very purple looking. Buddy flipped out, went on Facebook announcing she was a cheating hoe and had another man's baby. Few days later the baby was very white and the DNA test showed it was his. He just deleted his whole dang Facebook instead of owning up to it. Probably going to get buried but still wanna share. Not my story, it's the story of my dad's friend. In high school my dad's friend Cole was always into this girl Cindy, but she was always dating this one guy Jimmy. Jimmy breaks up with Cindy and she goes off the rails sleeping with everyone. Cole sees it as his chance to be the good guy and starts dating her. I'm not sure, but they either had a Ross and Rachel thing where they kept on breaking up and getting back together. She broke up with him, or that she was always cheating on him. Especially if Jimmy was hinting at them getting back together. They never did though, and he'd just sleep with her. But Carl never listened to my dad or his friends because of blind love. She was perfect in his eyes. So high school is over and Carl goes to the army. They weren't officially dating, but every time he was able to come back he'd end up with her a night or 2. My dad and his friends knew that she was sleeping around the whole time, but Carl didn't care. Eventually, while he was still serving, she convinced him that they were dating again. He proposed to her and she looked around for a house for them that he paid for with his army money. He comes back for good and they get married. A year later they have a beautiful baby girl together. That baby girl is his everything. This guy grew up a migrant worker and now he has his high school sweetheart, a home, a decent job, and his own little princess. 5 years later his wife gets pregnant again. This time she has a baby boy. Now he has to start working more to be able to care for the new baby while mom continues to be a stay-at-home mom. When the son is around 2 and the girl is around 7, he comes home to divorce papers and all his clothes packed up. Turns out the lovely house the wife had to have was because it made her the next door neighbor to Jimmy. This entire time she was still sleeping with him despite him also having a partner. The little girl and baby boy Carl thought were his weren't. They were Jimmy's kids, and Cindy knew it. Jimmy's partner had left him, so he finally wanted to be a family man, and Cindy jumped at the chance, kicking out Carl and divorcing him. He went into a depression and ended up losing his job because of it. I'm not sure what happened after that, but I hope Cole found a nice loving girl in the end. Jesus, that just sucks royally for Carl. Someone in my extended family had a baby, 2 Middle Eastern parents, that turned out to be dark-skinned. The father of the baby filed for divorce, even though the mother kept saying the baby was his. A few years later, they found out that the mother's great-grandmother was African and that the baby obtained strong genes from her. To think this would have been solved with a paternity test. Not a cheating story, but my sister's friend was born fair-skinned with red hair and green hazel eye colored. Both parents are dark-skinned with black hair and brown eyes. When her mom gave birth, everyone in the room went silent. However, the father knew that his wife didn't cheat. Turned out, his wife's great-great-grandmother had red hair and fair skin. However, hospital protocol made both parents get a DNA test, and everything was okay. I'm red-haired with blue eyes from a dad with black hair and brown eyes and a mom with auburn hair and hazel eyes. My sister is light blonde with blue eyes. My sister looks very much like my dad features-wise, but I'm more like my mom. And I'm not entirely convinced my dad is my dad, but at this point, it'd be just a nod for your information. He's my dad in the way that matters. I'm a midwife. The only one I've seen was when a baby had to be taken to the nursery for treatment for abo incompatibility. We test the blood groups of all babies born to O+ mothers because they're at risk for it. So the mother was O+, and the baby was something else. Would have been from the father. The father was insisting it couldn't be correct because it didn't match his blood group. We had to tell him to be quiet. Now was not the time place. Don't what ended up happening. However, they were from an ethnic background that may value certain blood types over others, so we did wonder if he actually knew his type or his parents had just told him it was the good one. Till there is a hierarchy of blood types. People will crap on each other for any reason. Okay, story from a friend of my brother's. She worked as a nurse and a woman and her husband came in. They were both white, and she delivered a child that was black. The husband immediately starts saying WTF. While she is going on and on about dormant trays and everything, he orders a DNA test. While this is going on, her mother and stepdad show up. The stepdad is black. After the testing is done, the DNA test ends up showing that the baby is the stepdad's. Her husband instantly dropped her and cut ties. Holy crap, real life P-Hub. I was told this story by a nurse. Veracity might be clouded by time, but a birth of the couple's third child. The couple was white. The baby was obviously of Pacific Islander descent. Everyone went very quiet. The nurse telling me the story said she took a moment of silence as she realized what had happened. Then she tried to act normally, but waiting for the outburst. She said the tension was unreal. The guy stared for a minute at a child that was very obviously not his. The mum was already in tears and talking very fast. The guy stood up, looked around for a minute, then left the room. Never said a word. He wasn't seen again at the hospital. The mum spent the rest of the day on her phone. The nurse doesn't think she ever found him. The last part is even more distantly related gossip, but allegedly the father cut all ties immediately, speaking regarding care of his 2 actual kids only through his lawyer. If any of that is true, I take my hat off to the guy. Dang, that's gotta suck for him. Everything suddenly falling apart at what's supposed to be one of the happiest moments of your life. Super awkward for everyone involved. The husband was only in the room for a bit then left and didn't see him again. The FOB, father of baby, showed up after the baby was born. I've also had where they didn't know whose baby it was, so both guys were present to see who they thought it was. Jesus, this is painfully awkward. Wasn't there, but my cousin found out real quick when his girlfriend's kid was black and neither he nor the girlfriend were. The funny thing is, he's the one taking care of him, as his girlfriend was an even bigger piece of work than he was and keeps showing time and time again that she's not fit to care for a child. My brother married a half Korean, half white woman who had 3 girls to the same Mexican guy. The first girl looks Latina. The second girl looks Pacific Islander. The third girl has platinum blonde hair and icy blue eyes. They look nothing alike, and yet if you look at their lineage it all makes sense. I don't know if this ever caused any issues between her and her ex, but I could understand if an eyebrow was raised in the third one. Now she has a 4th girl with my brother and she looks nothing like the other 3, just standard brown hair brown eyed white girl. I know this ain't super relevant to the question but it always entertains me. From my friend who was a delivery nurse for years. The mother takes the doctor aside and makes him promise to let her know the color of the baby the instant he knows. The baby is born and the doctor announces to mom, "Congratulations on your beautiful, healthy white baby." The father just walked right out the room and they never found anything more out about it. She played herself. Not a doctor, but my best friend's brother-in-law has 2 black parents and came out completely white. DNA test confirmed they were both his parents. It just be like that sometimes. I had a guy who worked for me years ago. He was white. She was a fair-skinned Indian. They had a baby that was so much darker than her and the tight black curly hair was a giveaway. He insisted it was his and stayed with her until she ran off with someone else. He wasn't the brightest light on the Christmas tree and the drugs obviously made it worse. Well, since no one is talking, I read an article where the white mother wanted to hide her black baby from the father and begged the nurses to do so. I can only imagine the storm left behind. If I were in that boat, my spouse would be informed far ahead of the delivery. However, procrastinating is easier. Unless she was hoping her husband was the lucky dad that got through. Med student. Had a mother who was A and father was A but baby ended up being A+. Mother was asking if it was possible for this to happen and the doctor kind of implied that it was possible, to my surprise since it's not meant to be, but they suggested to retest the husband's blood group and follow up with their GP. The doctor told me after that they didn't want to get involved and would leave it up to the GP to deal with and just hope the husband was actually positive. Apparently got awkward the next day. They stayed for a couple days after due to complications, when the husband was asking about blood grouping and was just strongly suggested to get retested. I never found out what happened after but from my impression of the mother and some of the things she said I am pretty sure she cheated. No idea what the doctors thought, but I had a phone call from the wife asking for my blood type while they were in the hospital the next day, and I ducked home. I'm A. The wife is O. Bub is A+. I've done enough science to know where that's going. Have done DNA testing. I'm 100% the dad. Still not sure how to get more interesting science info about the myriad markers that apparently exist. As explained to me by a clinical scientist, sometimes it's not a hard and/or. You can actually be somewhere in between. They can easily be mistyped as, and often are. If you are curious, you both can be tested again. Willing to bet one of you is a soft and. You have been visited by the source Chihuahua. You will be blessed with good pasta, but only if you comment simmer well. Papa, if you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people. Simmer well, Papa.